Hello everyone, welcome back to Covetous Imp Gaming. Today I want to talk about legendary actions and legendary resistances and how I incorporate them into my games at home. Before we get started with that, please give this video a like, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to our future content. Leave us a comment below about videos you'd like to see in the future, and check us out on Facebook and Patreon. Those links are down below. I think legendary actions and legendary resistances get a lot of flack from the community, and I think it comes from a lot of people who don't have a full understanding of why these things are important for your legendary monsters to possess. So what is a legendary creature? A legendary creature is a creature that is unique. There's only one of this thing in your world. This could be an ancient dragon or a lich or a death knight. These things, now you could have multiples, but this particular one has a name, and its name means something to everybody else in this world. It could be down to something that's just been imbued with some kind of power and has become a more powerful version of a regular creature and has possibly started to terrorize its own ecosystem. A legendary resistance allows your legendary creature to take a saving throw that it would have failed and turn that failure into a success. The monster has a set number of these that's usable per day. A legendary action is an action that it can take on a turn that's not the monster's turn, usually at the end of a player's turn, and make an action, spending a certain number of points, the amount of points that it refreshes every round at the start of its turn. Some of these actions that can be taken in between turns include things like making an attack, moving without provoking an opportunity attack, taking a non-spell slot Misty Step, casting a spell, and from there, the sky's the limit on what you can choose to use as a legendary action, but try to keep it within the range of what your legendary monster is already doing. So when it comes to my legendary resistances, I try to save those for things that are going to break the encounter or make the encounter turn into a loot pinata. For example, things like slow will just completely decimate your caster or melee legendary creature because now they've lost the use of their reaction for caster. That means no more counterspell, no more shield. You're basically just, when it's not your turn, you just have to just stand there and take whatever's coming to you. Banishment gives the party at a minimum a minute of just heal time. Dominate monster, hold monster, anything like that, where you just get free hits on the creature. Those tend to be really awful, and I will opt to take full damage from a fireball before I allow my players to just turn off half of my abilities or all of my abilities. So like every monster, I try to play their intelligence accurately. So if it's a low intelligence monster, the one that's been imbued by some other force and is terrorizing their ecosystem, for example, that monster is very primal and very instinct based. So early on, when it's surrounded by the party, it's just making random attacks at random people. As large hits start coming in, let's say the wizard's in the back and starts bombing spells on our monster, it will do what it can to get to the source of its last biggest hit. And then towards the end of the fight, when it's in survival mode, it's going to get to that person, again, that's by themselves, to try to get away or basically like get a couple good hits in before it dies. Your more intelligent bad guys, they are going to be watching you. They're going to know what you're capable of, what you're not capable of, the spells that you cast, your go-to moves, and they're going to be ready when you come and face them in their lair. They're going to be ready to pick you apart systematically. They're going to know this person's the healer, this person's the heavy caster, this person's go-to move is this, and they're going to be ready to deal with the entire party accordingly, and that's how they're going to use their legendary actions. If you look in the monster manual, you'll see that most legendary monsters have 3 resistances and 3 actions. That's because CR is based around 4 people, and the math that I used to use was 1 less than the number of people at your table. So if you had 6 people at your table, it wouldn't be unreasonable to have 5 resistances and 5 actions, because basically your bad guy gets the same number of actions throughout a round that your players do. The problem is that as people start to die off over the course of the fight, the amount of legendary actions that you have become unfair to the party. If you're taking multiple action costing abilities, something that costs 2 actions or 3 actions, and you're able to do that a few times around because people have died off and you're not just making moves or making regular melee attacks or casting a low-level spell, cantrip, for example, that can become way overpowering to the party. And I've since then changed my ideas on how to give legendary monsters their actions and resistances. So at this point now, I gear my legendary actions and my legendary resistances to the tier of adventure that the party is currently in. So tier 1 is levels 1 through 5, and I would give 1 legendary action and 1 legendary resistance to a legendary monster in that tier. Tier 2 being levels 6 through 10, I would give 2 and 2. Tier 3 being levels 11 through 15, 3 and 3. Tier 4 being level 16 to level 20, I would give up to 4 and 4. And anything that is over a CR 20, I would consider going 5 and 5. But I would also consider using things like a more dynamic encounter where the layer action is doing more to kind of to weigh the victory in the hands of the monster, or having some other effects going off to balance the encounter, a more movement heavy fight or something like that, where I'm not just, I'll let it resist literally everything that you do. I think a very interesting way to explain the reason why these monsters have these things can be broken down into a harder fight. So I've focused a lot on the enhanced monster, and now I want to talk about the spellcaster, the lich. If your party has a high-level wizard and you're going to fight a lich, imagine that those two will be kind of trapped in a battle of wits for the entire fight. There'll be spells flying back and forth, counter spells, countering everything that they can. But at the same time, the whole rest of the party is actively engaging that lich, while there's no other minions actively engaging that wizard. So during that time, the lich has to defend himself against the rest of the party while still engaging in that battle of wits with your wizard. And again, to focus on one of those spells that I would always use my resistances on, if a slow were to go off on that lich, you would have no shield, no counterspell, no reactions. You would have low movement to get away from all of those melee users that are in your face. And at the same time, when you went to cast a spell, there's the possibility that the spell won't even go off until the next turn. All those things combined make that fight go from very hard to deadly to easy. It would be impossible for you to lose if you were to get one of those crowd controlling spells off on your legendary monster. So for those of you that had little understanding of why these things exist, I hope you have a better understanding of them. And for those of you that have been using them correctly for all these years, I hope you have different insight on how I use them and will never get slowed again. That's going to wrap it up for legendary actions and resistances. As usual, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I will answer them as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you soon.